I have known my next guest all my life, I can say, and ever since I can remember, she has been passionate about plants, about nature, and about everything living. In fact, without further ado, I will introduce Jeanette Borg, who is a specialist in the field of agriculture, I must say. She's graduated in agroecosystems management, and she has gained experience in various posts in both in the public and private sector. She's the co-founder of Merrill Rural Network and is currently working as a senior lecturer at the Malta College of Art, Science and Technology. She's an active volunteer in the sector, and she participates actively through Malta Youth in Agriculture Foundation, also known as MAYA. At the moment, Jeanette is working on her Master's of Science degree, and the research is involving young farmers in Malta, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the results and the insight that is going to come out of her dissertation. Jeanette, I know that we have a lot of topics to cover today, and I feel maybe the first thing that we should go into is how we can support the environment through our food choices, because we can actively play a role in either destroying or nurturing our environment. What are your views?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. As you said, we've known each other for such a long time, but it's a blessing having someone as a friend who is a doctor and nutritionist. So, and due to our experience, we can discuss this topic in detail, because I know that it interests people very much. We talk a lot about
Indeed.
the environment. Obviously, like any living being, we eat and we consume food. So there are a lot of choices we can influence, and there are a lot of good deeds and bad deeds we can do through our eating habits, I must say.
Now, how can we maybe improve the environment through what we eat? I know that things like carbon footprint, even the amount of plastics that are used, and even the industrial processes involved will impact our environment.
Definitely, the carbon footprint is one of the major issues that makes our food healthy or clean or unclean. In the sense, not that it's not good to eat, because anything that reaches our plates should be safe to eat. However, products that are locally produced have less carbon footprint compared to those coming from abroad. Incidentally, like anyone who does the shopping, I tend to roam around the shelves and read the product of origin. And
That's very
incidentally,
important, in fact.
exactly, and to make an educated choice, you must read and ask. That's, I think, one of the main things that makes us do better choices and informed choices. And I came across blueberries produced in Chile and produced in Peru, South America, such a place distant to our islands. Obviously, to get those products to Malta, we are an insular island, so anything that has to come through ships and by planes has a much higher carbon footprint than locally produced food. Now, one must tell me, but how can we live without bananas, blueberries,
Exactly.
and
Some items we do not grow locally, so they have to be imported.
exactly. But I think the balance is the key
Yes.
is balance,
Yes. So when there is a
because
choice,
exactly,
and we can always choose
example,
local. And at the
exactly.
same
For
time, we would be
example,
supporting our local producers as well. So it's a double gain, right?
exactly. So let's say at the moment, strawberries are starting to kick in. They are already in season. There have been oranges for the past 2 months. So let's say that balancing our fruit diet on locally based, not just on bananas and blueberries we get from
Exactly.
abroad,
And that's
would
more
be
nutritious too, as well. Exactly.
exactly a more balanced approach, because we live in a reality where we don't produce everything, as you said.
Exactly. And how about when you buy in season? I also am aware that the prices vary according to how abundant it is. How does that benefit us as a consumer when we buy seasonal fruit and vegetables?
I think the biggest blessing we have out of the production of seasonal fruits and vegetables is that they are at their peak of freshness. So,
Exactly.
as I'm saying, we have oranges and apples available all year round, but the harvesting of such fruits could have taken place 9 months before, 10 months
Exactly.
before.
Exactly.
Nowadays, with very efficient post-harvesting techniques, we can have the fruit having its nutritional content kept well over the months. But we cannot remove the fact that if eaten fresh, it is
It's always better. Exactly. In fact, the
at the peak
vitamins
of freshness.
deplete with time. So even if you do preserve them in optimal conditions, there is always depletion, even in the freezer. So it is something that is happening.
Exactly.
Now, how about organic versus traditional farming? It's a dilemma that we all face, and there is a cost involved when you go for organic, and sometimes you might not be so sure about whether it is actually organic and the actual benefits of it. What are your views about it?
First of all, this organic versus conventional is a very complex topic, which might lead us maybe to another session where I can really delve into
For
the
sure.
topic,
Very
because it
interesting.
is a very complex decision to make. And as I'm saying, information and knowledge is key to make our informed decisions. But the crux of everything is that organic certification is a European type of certification. In fact, we see that little green leaf on certain products that have been organically certified. It's a quality label of the EU, and obviously anything that has that label has had plenty of checks.
Along the way.
But having said that, anything that is conventional is safe and fit for consumption. So the question is not whether organic or conventional is safe, but whether the decision that we do is pro the environment or less pro the environment. Again, we cannot generalize. I am not saying that anything conventional is not pro the environment, because, for example, locally, the organic farming certification is quite low in quantities of food we produce. However,
it's a
our
bit difficult as well because of the the size of the country as well.
Exactly. It's adapting to the rules. And here in Malta, we are so small and we have so much pressures on, for example, the size of the land that farmers manage, that is quite restrictive. Having said that, our farming is quite traditional. And even though we produce crops in greenhouses and in the open fields, conventional farming is much scaled down from the intensive farming systems that are available abroad, where you have a monoculture of the same crop. Here in Malta, you could go in the countryside and see insects
different
and
crops, exactly, on the
so, but definitely,
so it is a bit more of a traditional approach to industrial farming because of the scale of our country. Now, how about you've touched on the subject of intense farming. What does that cost to the soil, and what can we do as consumers to support farming practices that are more sustainable?
Locally, there are farmers who plant in the open field and even in greenhouses. And over the past few years, there have been farmers, for example, using other media, such as coconut fiber, for example. So not all the crops are produced in the soil. Like anything, there are good and bad aspects of each production system. But the fact that we consume products coming from a local soil means that we are protecting the soil, because very often what happens when farmers abandon the land, and even this is happening locally, the soil tends to be washed away because the rubble walls are not kept in place, because organic matter is not applied to the soil as a fertilizer. So consuming locally produced food would help the farmers in getting a stable income from their products sold, but even keeping the countryside alive, which would not happen in our semi-natural terrain, because our landscape has been forged for thousands of years by farmers primarily.
So that's interesting. We can actually help our soil remain nourished through the farming practices if they are done in an appropriate way and in a more traditional way. Now, how about permaculture, and what role does it have? What are the benefits of permaculture? I know that actually the soil microbiome is also linked, so we are all connected. The bacteria and the soil end up in our body, and they will help our cultures too. So it's very complicated and very linked as well. And what role does permaculture play, and how can it be applied, maybe even on the local setting?
Exactly. First of all, permaculture is quite a recent term compared to the other terms and traditional practices that have been around in Malta for, say, 5,000 years, 8,000 years. I always like to mention the Neolithic temples and the evidence they provide, being that Malta has always been producing food for its inhabitants.
Exactly.
Permaculture is basically a principle where you work with nature all the way. So it's a system whereby you give a lot of importance to the environment, which is excellent. It's slightly rigid, so many of the farmers might not be able to harness permaculture just because there are other objectives. This is like organic farming. When you produce organically, you will be producing 20%, if
less.
not more, exactly less, 20, 25, 30.
The same with permaculture, I imagine, because of the way you have to nurture the soil will impact output.
So essentially, the farmers have very little amount of land compared to farmers who are abroad and have 70 hectares, 80 hectares, which we don't even have in all of Malta. And if you reduce the production, there will be practically nothing left because the land area is so small. Nonetheless, there are principles that can be adopted, and I believe that education is the way forward in getting the farmers' experience to blend with these practical, because there are items which farmers do not knowingly that are very sustainable. Like, for example, instead of spraying herbicides, they apply plastic mulch, for example. If you happen to go walking in the countryside, instead of spraying a herbicide, they would put plastic mulch on their crops
to avoid growth of unwanted plants, right?
And preserve water. So there are many aspects that farmers do to avoid cost as well. Because
when you are sustainable, it's not only to save the environment, but also to prevent having costs running out of control, right?
Exactly. And
now, I was thinking of things that we can do at home. I know that you're very into growing your own plants at home and herbs as well. You have quite a nice collection. What can we do at home? For example, what would grow? What needs minimal attention? Some tips maybe about growing our own plants, edible plants at home.
I am always of the opinion that in any space you have, be it a balcony, be it a roof, you can always grow plants. Obviously, we have adverse conditions because of the heat in summer and the windy conditions in winter. But as you're saying, there are herbs and some crops that we can grow to beautify our places.
And we can eat them as well, so it's double gain, right?
Exactly. Now we're going into the spring and summer season, so we can have more basil and rosemary, and maybe attempt in planting a few lettuce crops and maybe some tomatoes, which is a fun thing to do, even to create awareness amongst children who do not understand how difficult it is to grow a crop and reap the fruits out of it.
That's true. And sometimes children are not aware because they've become detached from knowing where our food is actually coming from, where it grows, for example. Some children do not associate the plant with the crop, for example. So it's a good way to teach them about nature and how our plants end up on our table, right?
Exactly,
So
because
it's
the
really
plant is a
interesting.
commitment. So if you don't water the plants, you get your plants dying. If you have pests and you don't treat them, you're not going to eat any product. So that links to what the farmers do and the decisions they take to actually provide food on our tables.
Yes, and then it makes you more aware of the global picture of it all, right? Now, some take-home messages, both as a mother and as an expert in the field of agriculture and sustainability.
I think since we've had a toddler in the house, we learned a lot about how to connect food to children.
Not always easy, right?
Not always easy, and like a human being, kids develop their own preferences, so we have to accept that. But having said this, offering fruits and vegetables before offering other items such as bread, pasta, sweets, is always a good way to develop their palate and help them to grow a like and an affinity towards fruits and vegetables, preferably raw. Sometimes raw vegetables are even tastier.
I know that your
than
son eats raw onions, for example, and carrots, and it's really fascinating to see that, because not all children are into that kind of food, and it's great that he, at such a young age he's into them, which is really, really fantastic.
And secondly, the fact that whoever is at home, the parents, the grandparents, can lead by example. So we cannot expect children to eat fruits and vegetables if we do not consume fruits and vegetables like an ordinary practice. There's nothing exceptional in having a salad even in the evening with cooked meat and whatnot. So if they see us eating fresh fruits and vegetables, they will be more prone to
inclined. In fact, even if they refuse them, maybe at that point, they are always open to the idea of eating them, because it is something normal that they see at table.
Exactly.
So yes.
Sometimes if we show that we like a certain item, for example, broccoli, and we cook them with herbs and olive oil and whatnot, I show him that, listen, tastier vegetables come by with cooking, herbs, and olive oil. So they know that there's a process in cooking, and even having them cook themselves
as well
to have a better relationship with food products that might not be as enticing, such as sweets. But definitely even having them, carrying them along, not always easy, to buy the fresh fruits and vegetables. From a very early age, I used to take him, for example, to the farmer's market, and the fruit and veg, the farmer selling the product would give Nicole a plum, for example, or a piece of orange, or a piece of watermelon. And the fact that that would be like a treat, a present, makes it even more attractive and links the memory towards the shopping experience.
Yes, because sometimes we use sweets or chocolates as a treat or as a reward, but how beautiful is it to use a fruit and they are tasty and enjoyable as well, just as much as sweets and chocolates, and using a fruit as a reward is a fantastic way of encouraging that behavior.
Exactly. And the experience of choosing as well, because sometimes, okay, mommy does the shopping and that is where the food ends. But if we show the children that we choose our fruits and vegetables, there is an element of decision making in the house, and maybe in the future they start asking more questions about where the food comes from.
That's true. Now, Jeanette, would you like to share a way of being contacted? I know that you're very involved with Maya. Maybe you'd like to share the website so that we can get in touch with you as well through that, if there are some questions or any other.
Thank you for the opportunity, because over the past years we've had many consumers. Although Maya Foundation is about young farmers, we've had a lot of consumers reaching out and asking similar questions to what we have discussed today. because we all
fantastic.
have concerns about the food we eat. Sometimes we have some scaremongering on the news. So we want to put people's mind at rest with information that is both academic and factual on the local ground. So yes, if anyone would like to contact us, our email is info@maya.org.mt. Maya is MAYA, and our website is www.maya.org.mt. So please feel free to connect with us, and we would be more than happy to connect you with farmers and to whoever you'd like to make relevant questions about where our food comes from.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you even maybe in the future about topics related to healthy eating and the connection with food. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you too.